Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm retired Colonel Suresh Patil. Um, well, I joined Army in '68 as a youngster, and in 1971, as a captain, I took active part in Indo-Pak conflict, wherein I was wounded by enemy shelling. And in that particular battle, my battalion lost 6 officers and 47 men. Well, when I was in the hospital, when I came back into my senses after almost 24 hours, my commanding officer then, he said, Suresh, you're very lucky you survived. This is a bonus life. You have lost so many officers and so many men. Now you have to do good to the humanity. And well, while in hospital for 30 days, I decided that, yes, this is a golden opportunity and one has to really work out a strategy for one's own future. As you all know that when Mohan Chand was thrown out of the train in South Africa at night at 2 o'clock probably, then he became Gandhi. There was a total paradigm shift in his life. Likewise, I'm not trying to compare myself with Gandhi, but fact of the matter is, for any individual to take a very different paradigm shift, you need to be shaken up very badly. So my shaking up was obviously, wounds all over my body. So when I hung up my uniform in 1993, after having served for 27 years, I must chalk out my second inning. And I felt that there were 3 major issues, which bothered me a lot. One was national integration. Second was the welfare of our, war widows and ex-servicemen. And third one was climate change. Now, as you all know that half of the world is going to go underwater. All these island countries would be gone underwater. In fact, most of your Bombay's, reclaimed lands also would be gone underwater. And why that is happening is because of excess of sea levels rising. Now, why that is happening, of course, I don't want to go into nitty-gritties, but fact of the matter is that there is definitely requirement of working on a climate change. Now, whichever country will have water, that country will become a superpower. Now, I'm going to talk about silting of dams, because it's a universal phenomenon. Most of dams in the world are silted very completely, and their lifespan is very reduced, very little, maybe 10 years or a decade worth of time is left over for them. And therefore, when I studied, our India's dams, like we have from Punjab to Kerala, all the dams are silted. Now we come closer to Maharashtra, we have 450 to 500 dams in Maharashtra, and here also the same story, all the dams are silted very badly. Now come to Pune. Now Pune's dam, Khadakwasla, as you all know that. Now this Pune's dam was built in 1879. And then you had 4 TMC of water in this 22-kilo peripheral lake. And Pune's population was barely lakh plus. When we started work on this, that is almost 20 years hence, we realized that you had only 1.5 TMC of water because you had more of a silt, more of a mud, and less of water. So therefore, we went to the government and we took a proper permission from them, a proper MOU was signed. And well, till now we have removed almost 25 lakh truckload of a silt. When you remove 1 truckload of a silt, obviously you cater for 1 tanker worth of water. Now this silt is as good as a brown gold. Like when we give it to the farmers, there are 28 peripheral villages. We have distributed the silt free of cost to them. And therefore their yield has increased almost 4 times more. And if you clean up, so for example, if you clean up say 25 dams in Pune district, you would mean, you would have built another 50 dams. So therefore, this is a very innovative, cost-effective concept. When we went to the government, initially they said, we'll raise the wall of the dam by 5 feet. Now, if you did that, to increase the water content, if you did that, thousands of hectares would have gone underwater. We said, sorry, please don't do that. We agitated against it. And we said that we have this concept, when the water recedes further towards the wall of the dam during March, April, May, Almost out of these 22 kilometers, 20 kilometers is open to the nature, exposed to the nature. You can see their army, those are literally, pushing out this silt. So all these, islands were as big as, 1 acre, 5 acre, 10 acre, 100 acres, 200 acres. Now, all these islands were formed purely because in a catchment area, a lot of tree cutting taken place. And obviously, ground covers have been ransacked completely. And it rains very heavily there. And therefore, all the topsoil has run down. Now, as you all know that for a 1 inch of a soil to formulate, it takes almost 1,000 years. Now, all that has come down. Over a period of last 20 years, we have realized that you're getting almost 1 to 1.5 foot of a silt coming down into the lake, and therefore you have less of water and more of a silt. So, as you know that as on today, even half of our country is, in fact, half of our Maharashtra is without drinking water. Now, that's a big shame on us. We definitely need to plan our strategies in such a way that it is a total cost effective. In fact, if you clean up 5,000 dams in this country, it would mean you would have built 2,500 dams for the country. Or for that matter, for Maharashtra, you would have built out of 500 dams, you would have built 250 dams. Now, building a new dam, there are no land site available. And it will be very costly. As on today, it is very difficult to construct a dam. And, well, this is a very cost-effective idea that you just rejuvenate these dams. And therefore, now this soil, when it goes into the farmers' fields, your yield is also increasing 4 times. Like in Satara, there's another dam there, Nair. There we've removed the silt and given it to farmers where, nothing was growing. There, the farmers have taken a yield of almost 5 lakh rupees of ginger. Now, as you know, that ginger, it's grown into the soil. So the soil is so good that the ginger, was as big as, big palm like. So, fact of the matter is, this is a cost-effective idea for our country. So if you clean up 5,000 dams in the country, obviously your economy will shoot up. We are looking at 5 trillion economy, but I'm sure it will be much more than that if you clean up all the dams. And we have done this with people's participation. Of course, we got around Indian Army also. Now you get to see the wall of the dam there. And on the sides, we have made these beautiful walkways. Now this is an embankment which we got marked from the irrigation department, that is HFL, high flood level. The edge of the lake, we've got it marked, and on that we have made this embankment, wherein we have planted almost 30 lakh trees with people's participation. We have, of course, and we have planted almost 25 lakh bamboos. Now bamboos, as you all know, that bamboo holds on to the soil. And idea is that not a teaspoon of silt should come down into the lake again. So therefore, we have planted bamboo all along. And on the edge of the lake, we have planted tall trees. Why? Because as we understand, almost 1 TMC of water, now 1 TMC would mean huge water evaporates every year. So if you have these tall trees all along the lake, obviously it will, to some extent, it will save on to this evaporation. And of course, now there are many cascading benefits. The bird life has increased, migratory birds have started coming. So fact of the matter is, it is this is a project which has been appreciated all over the world. In fact, I was invited by American Waterworks to give a presentation in Philadelphia, and they were wonderstruck. They said, Colonel, how is that with people's participation, you've done something out of the world which we have not been able to do it. Now there in California, a dam called Oriveli got almost burst because of excess of silt and landslides. And they came and saw for themselves. They said, well, Colonel, how is that you all are doing it? I said, this is where our, Adhyatma teaches us. We always want to give it back to the society. So therefore, our, our population, generally from Pune, all the youth and, of course, NCC, NSS, like I said, Ganpati Mandals, everybody comes and, gives a helping hand, and purely social volunteering activity. Like I said, your economy will develop and your urea subsidy will be saved. You will be saving for Pune district almost 25 to 30,000 urea subsidy. Now all that money can be given gainfully to education and health. In fact, Indian Army also gave us a support because in Army we have this engineering regiments. They carry out their refresher cadres every year for 3 months. They used to do it in Alandi, somewhere in the mountains there. They would push, the dozer would push sand from one side and another from another side, and the JCB would, dig up here and then throw that mud there. So we said, do that training here in dam, and which they gainfully agreed, and therefore, in 3 months' time, they removed almost 3 lakh truckload of a silt. Like I said earlier, when you remove 1 truckload of a silt, you cater 1 tanker worth of water. In fact, in Army, they teach us that, whichever task is given to you, your target should be very stiff. Target should be very difficult to achieve. So what I had set target for myself was that there are only 2 man-made objects which are visible from the moon. One is the Great Wall of China, and second is the Palm Island in Dubai, which has been built by Al Maktoum King. And I said ours should be the 3rd project which should be visible from the moon. Of course, now on Google, you get to see almost 25 kilometers of our waterfront which we have developed. Obviously, we have to do another 20 kilometers, which hopefully we'll do it in next couple of years' time, because now a lot of awakening has taken place and a lot of people, have started participating. So silting, like I said, it's a universal phenomena. Now, you will not able to build any more dams because the sites have been, consumed already. So whatever is existing, you have to clean it up and maintain it properly. And obviously increase your green cover. Mull over this idea and pass it on to your friends that how important it is to rejuvenate all the dams in the country. Thank you so much. God bless.